As you know, Germany lost World War II. In fact, they lost it so badly that many people say that there was no way that Germany could have won, due to a lack of resources, a lack of manpower, and also being at war with literally the entirety of the world. But I believe that any country can win a war if they play the cards right, including Germany. So with a lot of hindsight, I managed to make a scenario where Germany wins World War II. But before I'm starting the scenario, we need to go over some ground rules. Firstly, I will not change the German leadership. If Germany wasn't as radical as they were in our timeline, they maybe could have won. But if Germany isn't Nazi, then it doesn't really feel like World War II. Secondly, we can't just say that Germany wins battles without explanations. So I can't just say that Germany wins at Moscow and that's it. And now that the rules are laid out, I can show you the scenario. In the scenario, I will not change the invasion of Poland, the invasion of the Nordic, and the invasion of France. But what I will change are the French surrender terms. I would add a line to it that gives Germany the right to occupy any French colony during the war. And I did it because it lets Germany occupy French Syria, which gives Germany an easy route to conquer Palestine and the Suez, while at the same time Germany would send troops into Libya to support Italy's Egyptian offensive. And with a concentrated push, the Axis can pretty easily take control over all of Egypt. Simultaneously, the Italians will make an offensive into Sudan from East Africa, managing to secure the Italian southern flank. Meanwhile, in Europe, Germany doesn't start the Battle of Britain, because Germany didn't really gain anything from the battle. In addition, they lost 2,000 aircraft in it that would be needed heavily in the invasion of Russia. But for now, they'll be in the Mediterranean, trying to destroy the British fleet in the region. In addition, nationalist Spain will join the Axis in exchange of French colonial territories, and they will take over Gibraltar. And now that the two straits that connect the Mediterranean to the rest of the world are controlled by Germany, it means that the British fleet is effectively trapped in the region. And with German aerial bombardments and with Italian naval raids, eventually the British fleet in the Mediterranean will just run out of fuel, and they will be either destroyed or surrendered. And now that there is no British fleet in the Mediterranean, the Axis can pretty easily take Malta and Cyprus, while Germany will support the Iraqi coup and they will invade Kuwait, while the Balkan campaign will be the same as it was historically. Meanwhile, in East Asia, I will make a few changes with Japan. Now, at that time, there was a rivalry between the Japanese army and the Japanese navy. Both of them had different views for what Japan should do next. The army wanted to invade the USSR, while the navy wanted to invade the European colonial empires. Historically, the Japanese navy won the rivalry, but in my scenario, I'll change it that the army would win. And like Finland, Japan would make a pact with Germany that says that if Germany attacks the USSR, Japan will also attack. Another change that I'm going to make is Japan not occupying Indochina, because the Japanese occupation of Indochina gave the USA excuse to embargo Japan. And now Germany can start Barbarossa. But before that, now that there is no British fleet in the Mediterranean, the Italians doesn't need to garrison the coast in the Mediterranean. Instead, they will garrison the coast in France, leaving more troops for Germany's invasion of Russia. And now, Germany can start Operation Barbarossa. Initially, the German offensive was like the historical German offensive, managing to make an encirclement in Minsk, while the German forces were surrounding Kiev and Smolensk. Meanwhile, in East Asia, Japan would mass mobilize the population, sending them to the Soviet border while also sending reinforcements from other parts of the empire. And when Germany attacked, they would also attack the USSR. Back to Europe, Germany would take Smolensk and the western bank of the Dnieper. But now that Germany has 500,000 more men and at least 1,000 more aircraft, the Germans would manage to breach the Soviet defensive lines near Kiev a month earlier, and by mid-September, the Germans would completely vaporize the Kiev pocket, which means the Germans would start Operation Typhoon a month earlier. And historically, the offensive stopped because of the spring thaw. But now that there is another month until the spring thaw comes in, the Germans can capture Tula and Kolomna. Meanwhile, in the Middle East, when the Soviets and the English would invade Iran, an Italian-Iraqi army would enter Iran, liberating Tabriz, and by mid-December would take Baku. Back in Europe, now that the ground is finally frozen over, the Germans can finally restart their offensive. Unlike what happened historically, now that the Germans control Tula, there is no major city stopping Germany from encircling Moscow. And now that the Siberian army is fighting the Japanese, there is no reinforcements to save Moscow. And Germany managed to encircle Moscow, trapping 500,000 troops in the city. And with 500,000 troops destroyed in Moscow, and another 500,000 fighting the Japanese, the Red Army is too weak to launch a winter counteroffensive. But also the Germans can't launch a winter offensive, as the army was underprepared for the Russian winter. So both sides used this time to bolster their lines. During this time, the Japanese has managed to conquer the entirety of Outer Manchuria and a big chunk of Mongolia. Meanwhile, in Europe, now that winter has ended, Germany starts a new offensive. The offensive goes way better than the historical 1942 German offensive, as the German lines are stronger and the Soviet lines are weaker. And by late 1942, Germany managed to completely occupy the Caucasus. Meanwhile, in the north, Germany manages to take Leningrad, as Germany still controls the road of life. Next, Germany sends their troops to Finland, managing to cut the Murmansk railway. And now, all land lease routes to the Soviet Union is controlled by Germany. And in June 1943, Germany launches a final offensive against the Soviet Union, pushing them to the AA line. After this, the Soviet government would start to collapse, and they would sign an armistice with Germany, ending the war in the East. Although this is a huge victory for Germany, the war is still not over. Around late 1942, early 1943, the USA will find a way to join the war against Germany. Meanwhile, in Africa, the British have successfully pushed the Italians from East Africa, and now they are pushing them from Sudan, while the Americans will make a naval invasion to the Suez, trying to outflank the Italians and capture Egypt. But now that Germany isn't fighting Russia, they can send forces to destroy the naval invasion, while the Americans will make another naval invasion in Morocco. But once again, Germany sends reinforcements and push back the naval invasion. The Allies, seeing their failures, will try to make one final attack. They will concentrate the forces at a naval invasion at Normandy, and initially they would manage to push the German lines. But Germany would send all of their available forces to the area, and after about 2 weeks, the Germans would outnumber the Allies in the area almost 2-1. And with Germany's new numerical superiority, they would make a huge counterattack, capturing most of the Allied soldiers. And with this, the last Allied hope for victory is extinguished. And to make the Allies' odds even worse, after the defeat of Russia, Germany would make a huge naval build-up, threatening the United Kingdom. In addition, Japan would start to mobilize for war, threatening the Allies' colonies. And with all of those reasons, the Allies would sue for peace with Germany. And with this, the scenario ends. I will not talk about the post-war scenario in this video, but I will in another video. And if you would like to see more videos like this one, press the like button and comment something. You don't know how far it helps. By the way, this video is not political.